What's up, everybody? So great to be with you on this July. Now we are officially halfway done with the year, which it's been quite a year, at least for me. And I think most people feel like this has been a pretty wacky, wild year. And I am just super excited. Let me know where you are listening or watching in from, even if you catch a replay or it's a week later. Say hi. Let us know who you are, where you're watching. I have an amazing guest today, Elaine, who I actually met through Selena Sue, who was a guest a couple months ago around her launch for her book. And Elaine has decades of experience as a writer, as a journalist, working with brands, and has this. I'm just going to let you talk about what it is to launch $1 million business by yourself. And this has become a whole thing that she's created. So with that, Elaine, thank you so much for being here today and getting to know some of my people, my family. I would love for you to talk a little bit about your journey and what you're doing today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Rachel, and Rachel's family. It's nice to meet you all, and I'm so honored to be here. I started out always wanting to be a writer. I'm one of those Johnny One Notes or Jane One Notes, where even when I was in kindergarten, I was an early reader, and I started writing stories, and I never stopped. And in high school, I worked on the school newspaper, etc. Worked in newspapers for 6 or 7 years, and then made the leap over to magazines. And I most recently was on staff at Fortune Small Business Magazine. And then in 2007, I went freelance. I have 4 children, and I found my life was all logistics, and I wanted more time for my kids, but I also wanted to work at a high level and work full time. So it made a lot of sense for me to become a freelance writer, and I never looked back. I've been fully occupied since then, and it's brought me so many wonderful gifts. I wound up writing 2 books. One is called The $1 Million One Person Business, and the other is my newest one, Tiny Business, Big Money, where I'm looking at micro businesses that hit the 7-figure mark and what it took to get there. They're run by everyday people, professionals like us, who had a dream of building something for themselves. And it's been so wonderful to just see all the different ways that people have gotten to that mark and built the life that they want. And by the way, $1 million is a relative term. These people all did get to $1 million, but $1 million in New York City and Manhattan, New York is different from $1 million in Manhattan, Kansas. That might be 250,000 in Manhattan, Kansas. It doesn't matter. It's what your version of $1 million is, and that's what I'm interested in the work that I do.
So tell me a little bit about the book and the kinds of people that you interviewed and what characteristics, what are the things that stood out, or maybe some stories that really resonate with you?
Sure. Well, the book came about because of a blog that I've been writing on Forbes since 2012, and I came across some statistics from the Census Bureau about what are called non-employer businesses. I had no idea what they were, but I kind of guessed they had no employees. So I started poking around, and I noticed that there was some that were getting to 1 million. And what was very interesting was they were across different industries, including industries like professional services, where we're all told not to do this. We're trading time for dollars, but yet people were getting there. So I wrote a post about the statistics because you can't find out from the Census Bureau who filled out those surveys. And it went viral. And people said, that was a cliffhanger, Elaine. You didn't tell us who the businesses were. Find out more. So I waited. I actually posted on Forbes to say, hey, if you're one of these businesses, people are really curious. I'd love to hear from you. And over the course of a year, I heard from about 5. And I think the first one was Alan Walton, who ran an online spy camera store, the nanny cameras. Rachel Charlupski was running a babysitting service for the families of pro athletes, where, if the spouse wanted to watch the game, they would have on-site high-end childcare. She was running it from a BlackBerry, which I don't know if all of you remember what the BlackBerry was. It was like before the iPhone. This is what a mobile phone was like. And then Dan Mezeritsky was a fitness trainer who was licensing his fitness methodology to other fitness trainers. There was a wealth manager who had a newsletter that was doing quite well, and so on. And that post went crazy viral. And I started hearing from more of the one-person businesses. So every time I found one, they were kind of a needle in a haystack. I would profile them, and then that would lead to more people writing to me. So I was just writing about these for several years and finding there was a great amount of interest. And then my agent noticed the post going viral and reached out to me and said, "Hey, this looks like a book." And I had been thinking that way too, but I didn't really know how I would turn it into a book. And and that's how it came about. And now I do events about these entrepreneurs. Every month I do at the New York Public Library. We took it online because people are attending from as far away as Africa. We used to do them in person. And during the pandemic, it went online. And then we found it had built this international audience. So we have one coming up this coming Monday, July 14th at noon Eastern time. And we're looking at how to close sales. We look at different issues that might be obstacles for someone in getting to a million. And then we talk to the real entrepreneurs from the two books to see what they would do and get their advice. And they do think differently, that to your point, Rachel, but I don't want to go on and on. I'll let you jump in here.
Oh my God. So you're tactically giving advice around, so with this event series, that is giving tactical advice that's coming up for these solopreneurs around different topics. Are you creating content out of that as well, blogs and whatnot?
Yeah, I actually sometimes I cover what happened on those calls on Forbes, or I started a Substack newsletter called The $1 Million One Person Business, not surprisingly. And I've been profiling some of them because some of the conversations, when you get them under one video roof, basically, you'll see that they cross-pollinate ideas. And there are a few themes to your point. One of them is that they're great students of leverage, of extending what one person can do using the budget of an ordinary person, not somebody who has raised a round of funding in Silicon Valley, but maybe money saved from a job, an inheritance from a grandparent, or money they were gifted growing up. Depending on their age, their money sources are sometimes different. But basically, they use a lot of automation. When I first started covering the trend, it was all automation, digital tools, like
Mhm.
Canva or
Yeah.
Figma, all of those. Then
Yeah.
it evolved more to AI in the last couple of years, like
Right.
ChatGPT, for instance, or Claude. They use outsourcing in some cases. The e-commerce merchants will, for instance, use fulfilled by Amazon instead of packing all the boxes themselves. After they get a big pallet of
Right.
mugs or something driving up on their driveway, they realize, no, I don't want to pack these
Yeah.
boxes. I'll pay money for someone else to pack them. And then they're using contractors, and people say, well, is that a one person business? And no business operates in a vacuum. For tax, I use the definition of the tax authorities. If it's a non-employer business, that
Mhm.
is what I'm writing about. So some of them might be a two-person business, like a husband and wife team, for instance, but they don't have payroll. And it's a different way of running a business than what I cover in Tiny Business, Big Money, where somebody finally has gotten to the point where they say, I have to have one or two people here on staff all the time because demand is high enough, or the labor laws say that this person must be an employee. But how do I keep all the freedom of the one person business? So they're a little bit different entities in that the $1 Million One Person business is very flexible. Like maybe you need a whole bunch of contractors before the holiday season in an e-commerce business. And then that's it. The relationship changes. They move on. They have their own businesses. And that's what I'm writing about. So those are the things in common. And mindset, I would say they're much more entrepreneurial than the average person running a one-person business. They do business development. They build up their IP. Maybe they're developing a course. Maybe they're developing digital products,
Yeah.
because once you develop them, they're very profitable. You basically, your only expense is marketing them. And that's the difference. And that's what I hope people will take away is we all have what it takes. We have ideas. We have something that we're good at, but how do we make that work for us if we wish to leave the world of being an employee.
So, couple things are well, let's leave the employee. I'm gonna put a pin on that one for a second. But as something that you mentioned, a lot of these folks, some of the common characteristics is automation, right? Digital, and then you mentioned AI, and of course, that is a massive topic, right? What are you seeing that some of these businesses are potentially getting or will predicting that they will be wiped out with AI really becoming part of every business?
I don't think so. Because I'm seeing this with writing. I'm a journalist primarily, and there was about a year where all my journalist friends were really worried about AI replacing all of us. But now, because I'm also a ghostwriter, I'm getting cleanup jobs from people who tried to write a book with AI, and they're like, this doesn't sound good for some reason. I don't know what's wrong with it. It's clean, but there's something missing, and what's missing is the soul. It's the imperfection. AI is a great tool if you're not a confident writer. Like if you want to
Yeah.
create an outline, you could talk to it, and maybe you do a recording in TurboScribe. That's a tool that I use. Then you feed it into ChatGPT and say, how do I organize this into chapters? And what are some ideas that I could use for the chapter titles? But then you have to weigh in on it. And I would say for the writing, it plagiarizes. It will probably get better, but there's a lot that's not good compared to a human being. And I think maybe it will reduce certain jobs. Maybe like people used to
Well,
hire
you mentioned like course
transcribers.
creators, like a lot of digital products course creation, is an area that's going to be very disrupted. I mean, why would you take a on-demand digital course when you could just go and put it into the GPT and in 1 minute tell you exactly what that methodology is? Like that's just what I think for like one of those segments. I know you mentioned many different kinds of solopreneurs that are $1 million business, but as you think about the disruption,
I
to me,
think it will make Oh, I'm sorry. I think it will make it easier actually for them to do the courses because you can say, you know, like using a no code or low code app, maybe build certain things yourself. You probably wouldn't have to hire a developer. But to me, that lowers the barriers to entry to starting a business because access to capital has been what's kept women
yeah,
and people of color, for instance, from starting as many businesses because over the past several decades of me being a business reporter, the needle has never moved. The amount of capital that goes to women, I think it's less than 3% of venture capital, and I think less than 1% goes to people of color. So if it's not moving, and one of the costs of running a business is hiring the coders and web developers and things, and now you don't need to do that, I feel like it empowers more people to be able to start a business. But those coders will have to repurpose themselves, similar to me, right? I started out as a journalist. There's not that much money in journalism anymore. I used to maybe get $5,000 or $6,000 for an article. Those days are long gone, but I do make a good living as a ghostwriter, and I'm still able to subsidize the journalism with my ghostwriting. And
yeah,
now I do paid speaking, and I just developed 2 courses myself. And I think the authenticity with the courses is what's going to sell them. If you created a sort of boilerplate course, it's similar to if you created a boilerplate article that could have almost been done by dictation. But if it's like
yeah,
Selena's course, she's got so much personality, she's got
yeah.
so much unique knowledge, that's not going to go out of business because of AI. It's more the mid level and below that I think will be threatened.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. I mean, the days of like getting by without really having IP, without really having experience or knowing what you're talking about, um, because AI sort of commoditized right content, and it's given everyone this baseline knowledge that everybody's using to really stand out and to build community and get people, and right, and we're in a trust recession that we're going to need people like, yes, I have decades of experience doing this, right, Elaine, to your point, I've done this. Like people are going to want to learn from you because it's you and they trust you and they know you've worked. They know that you have the experience. So I'm hoping that the bar is now going to raise. Personal branding is now like the most important thing, which is our brand launch pad. You see that QR code. We're actually doing a specific brand launch pad to help people get their personal brands figured out and launched, because I think that that's going to be the new currency. I mean, that's the trust is the new currency, and it's the real human. So I think and that's part of like with Selena too, right? She has people really vouch for her, and she's got a lot of uniqueness, and she's also niche, right? Like specifically, what are you going to teach me? Specifically, what is it? It's these broad, swooping things. I think those days are over.
I agree. I think the personal brand is going to be extremely important in the future. You're definitely onto something. Tell me more about the brand launchpad. What is it? What does it do to uncover what people need to know?
Well, we go through an origin story with the individuals. And so to your point of these unique stories and background experiences that AI can't know, the world doesn't know. You can only do that through real human conversation and pulling that out. So we're extracting that out of the people we work with. And then we're able to put that information into a playbook for them. Here's your voice principles. Here's how you write your about section. Here's how, what does that short headline look for you, right? So that it's specific to an audience, specific to what you do and how you support people. So that extraction is what our part of our genius, right? Part of our differentiation, what Rachel B. Lee does. And then the question is, well, then what do you do with that? How do you take your voice and bring it to market? What does that content look like? So we're giving that ecosystem, that structure to people with the launch pad. We're also including a brand photo shoot, Elaine, because people need to see your face. People have got to see your face. People want to see you in action. It doesn't have to be perfect pictures, but a lot of the clients that we work with, they're incredible established leaders in their respective industries, but like they don't have a bunch of pictures. And we need that. We need to humanize the way we market in every single facet, whether it's your own business or somebody else's business.
That's such a good idea because so many people don't have headshots. I got mine done at Glamour Shots, and it was a lot of fun. And then I had them. I got a whole bunch, and you can get them shot with different outfits on and things so that you have them in rotation. But it is really helpful. People do like to put a name with a face, and and to your point, I think people get intimidated by their personal brand, the whole idea of it, because they think they're going to have to be very salesy. And the truth is people are looking for your authentic brand, whoever you are. And that could be being an introvert, which Selena says she is. It's being true to yourself, but it's also about staying in professional integrity. Are you trusted?
Yeah.
Do they believe what you're saying? And are you talking about something that's within your area of expertise?
Yeah.
I talk about small business. I may have political opinions or opinions about parenting or health or other things, but I really don't write and talk about those things because there are other people that are much more immersed in those that can lend a lot more expertise to them than I can. Unless someone really wanted to know what I thought about it, but I don't volunteer it or try to create products around it. And that's what I would encourage people to do. The people with the $1 million one person businesses are very clear about what they bring to the table, and they bring that personality to the brand. One example who I love is Steve Ferreira. He started a company called Ocean Audit. Now, this niche is probably the most boring sounding one you can imagine. He does audits of the shipping bills. If, for instance, Nordstrom ordered 10,000 pairs of high heels from a certain brand and they come over on a ship, there are mistakes on the bills, and the bills are a public document. So he audits them, and then he goes to the retailer and says, I discovered there's a $500,000 mistake on your shipping bill. I'll collect it for you, but I get to keep 50%. And of course, they're happy to get the half of that. And it makes them look good. They suddenly had a little windfall. But what he does is, because it's so boring, he had sort of an acting background. He buys these fancy suits, and he has pins with little the steering wheel for a ship, and he presents the findings with a flourish, and he makes it really fun. And he's always so much fun when I have him on the programs with the library and other speaking events. And that's what we all can do. He has a business that's just sort of an accounting function, really, that isn't super sexy, but he made it fun and he made himself stand out. Now he created his own TV studio in his house, and he calls himself I think it's like the most interesting man in ocean freight. And and that it's such a great example. He's in Tiny Business, Big Money, and you can read about him. There's a lot of case studies in these books because I want people to realize this is not cookie cutter. Sometimes people would like a recipe, like do this and you'll have a successful e-commerce business. Step one, like it's IKEA furniture. But it's not like that. As my one daughter said, Mom, what they need to realize is there's some creativity in business, and it's like being an artist of your own career. You've got to think about, okay, well, what are people like about me? What am I really like? What do I know a lot about? What do I geek out on? What do I know more about than anybody else? Where do I have style? Or just some riz. How do I bring that to my business? And you can have fun with even a seemingly boring business. Sometimes people feel like, well, I'm not a creative artist. I'm doing something dull. But he's an example of someone who just made it so much fun.
That's such a good example. And it really speaks to what we're talking about here, this brand personality, pulling that out. And at the end of the day, well, that's a very niche business, but a lot of us are doing businesses that aren't that specific, right? There's a lot of people that might be doing marketing in different forms. And so how do you find your differentiation? What is the spice that you specifically bring, especially if you are that solopreneur? And and I love that you said he had a acting background, right? So there's this history, there's this connection to who he is today. And that's really the magic, right, of storytelling and branding, which I think we're now really in the era of branding, because it's going to be the only way to differentiate ourselves, really, right? And putting our face out there, as long as it's, not some like deep fake or anything. I see your daughter in the background. She probably didn't know
That's
that.
part of my personal brand, is my family with 4 kids. Yeah, well, it's. I think a lot is being authentic, right? Like back in the day, people were told you should get a fake phone system that says, if you'd like to reach accounting, press 1. If you'd like to reach marketing, press 2. And it was all one person. Now we're embracing the fact that we're a one-person business and we have lives, and our dog is barking in the background, or we're doing this from a cycling trail, our broadcast, or whatever we do that makes us unique, and that gives people a point of connection with us.
Yeah.
And people are looking for the human side. Rachel, what you were saying about AI, I think is a real concern, because as you start taking people out of the equation, then it becomes a little cold and automated and efficient, and we're missing something. It's similar to social media, where I've made some very good lifelong friends through social media, but you always wind up taking the relationship off the platform, and you will have a cup of coffee with them, or you go see a play, or you do something where you start having real life experiences. And that personal branding is what it gives people a hook to see, like, do I have something in common with this person? Are they my people? Is this my tribe? And they'll get some clues from that.
Yeah. Could not agree more. I mean, yeah, we can only do digital so much. And if we really, especially when you're building a business, it's not going to take thousands of people to be successful. It's actually the 10 or 20 or 30 people that vouch for you, that you've showed up for, that you've proven your worth for, and there's this reciprocity in that relationship, right? But so many people don't understand that. They don't. And unfortunately, social media has created this culture that it's okay to just like make ass when you haven't built a relationship, right? And this way of communicating is something that I know, especially with the younger generation, we really get to show how we communicate, how we show up, our presence. That is the most important piece if you're going to build a business or really be successful in your career.
I totally agree with you. I think the rule to keep in mind is really lifelong relationships. You
Yes.
you really want to build deeper relationships with fewer people because there's only so many you can maintain. I mean, some of this is what Selena discussed in her book, but I'm still working with some of the same people I worked with when I first started out. And what people look for is consistency, not are you their friend when you need something, but are you their friend when they lost their job or
Yeah.
something happened? And that's really important to think about whether you're building a career inside the walls of corporate or outside. Your life isn't just a transaction, and some of these automated things can make things very transactional, but it
Yes.
always comes back to human beings. And that's where, if you want to build a business, people are really hungry for connection. They're hungry for authenticity. They're hungry for real. And the more things take us away from that, the more the person that's providing that, that's genuine, that's really bringing their heart and soul to the business, can stand out. And one thing that helps some of the businesses in professional services and areas like that to charge a premium is really offering those extras, offering the human touch, and customizing. Customizing is really important. A lot of these businesses might scale by having something they can sort of automate, like a digital product, but it helps to have some aspect of the business that is very unique to maybe a small audience. It doesn't have to be customized to each individual, but like, you have your followers, you know what they're interested in,
Yeah.
and you choose your content selectively,
Right.
not for all people, but for this audience of executives and career changers and professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we come to a close, couple rapid fire questions that are fun. Um, in the morning, what's your must have? A journal, a coffee, or right onto the inbox and checking emails?
It's hot yoga. My daughter and I go every morning at 5:45. Yeah,
Wow,
I'm an addict. I love it. It just sets the tone for my whole day.
that's amazing. Very, that already speaks enough of like about who you are, the commitment and your body and your soul. I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay, cool. Social media, love it or hate it?
I love it because it's brought some of my favorite people into my life. I don't spend a lot of time on it, maybe 10 minutes a day, but I try to make it count and be consistent in what I talk about.
And a business book beside yourself, your own, that you swear by, changed your life.
Well, I would say Company of One is a very good one for people that are interested in the one person business. Paul Jarvis is a competitor, but we're friendly competitors. And I really loved it that he came out with his book around the same time I did. And it really celebrates the one person business.
Okay, company of one. And then what's one word that defines your mission right now?
Freedom.
Hmm.
I try to bring people freedom to live the life that they want, however they define that life.
Hmm. That's beautiful. I love that so much. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Elaine. Please follow Elaine here on LinkedIn. We'll also put her link in the comments because this is going to get casted out to a couple places. And just thank you so much for being here. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, please share it. Love for other people to hear this. And if you're interested in working on your personal brand, definitely check out our brand launchpad that just came out. Other than that, I will be back next month with another amazing guest. I hope you have a great July, y'all, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you so much.